This is WWE superstar Drew McIntyre, and you're listening to the WWE Podcast.
The champ is
the one that everybody wants, me.
It's going to WrestleMania. Claymore!
Austin 316 says I just whipped your ass. This is my iron. You're going to acknowledge me.
What's going on, everybody? Guys and girls, welcome back to another edition of the SmackDown review right here on the WWE Podcast. As always, I am one of the hosts of this show, Michael Ritter. You can find me on X at Michael5Ritter, on Instagram at MichaelRitter5, and also one of the hosts of the Football Function Podcast, available on all your podcasting platforms, including the one that you're listening to this show on right now. We actually just recorded our 500th episode of the Football Function Podcast. Pretty monumental milestone, if you will. I mean, 500, that's a hell of a lot of episodes to record, edit, produce, all that good stuff, all the behind-the-scenes stuff that really doesn't get talked about, probably doesn't even get thought about, really. I mean, it's more than just sitting in front of a microphone and talking for half an hour or however long these episodes end up running. But I did want to give a quick shout out to everybody that has gone over to the Football Function Podcast from the WWE Podcast. It's a big deal to me. The listeners that we've gained over the years that have come from this tight-knit group. Now, obviously, you know, listeners come and go. That's kind of the nature of podcasting. But every now and then you come across some that really stick around, you know, and they're here for the long haul. So shout out to all of you, and hopefully you will continue to listen to not only this show, but the Football Function Podcast as well. Having said all that, guys, it is WrestleMania weekend. We are finally here. One of the most joyous times of the entire year. The fact that, you know, our 500th episode kind of went in sync with WrestleMania weekend, that it almost feels like, you know, I kind of mentioned this on the podcast the other day, that it feels like the end of the school year. It feels like there's reasons to be excited, you know, joy's in the air. So I think that this is going to be a pretty monumental weekend. I think it's going to be pretty juicy. For those of you that don't know, apparently there's the quote-unquote WrestleMania World. I'm not sure I've heard about this before other than this year. Obviously, some of the listeners that I know that are going to WrestleMania definitely are going to attend the WrestleMania World, so I definitely want to see some pictures and things like that. But I will say that if it's anything like WrestleMania Access, or if WrestleMania Access is the same thing, just kind of rebranded or inside of WrestleMania World, then I imagine it's going to be a pretty damn good time, just because that's almost just as cool as WrestleMania, and obviously that's saying a lot. But the fact that we're creeping up here to WrestleMania 40, man, like that's a big time reason to get excited for wrestling. I know quite a few people that are kind of easing their way back into wrestling over the last few weeks, over the last few months, just specifically because of The Rock coming back. And because of that, they're having to watch all of these other wrestlers who are just, you know, modern day superstars, and they're having to, you know, watch them work, watch them compete, and pretty much be gravitated towards them a little bit, and you become invested. It's happened to many people, you know, a lot of people that take a break from watching wrestling. It takes something that really gets them emotionally invested, or just really living vicariously through somebody, or just having that type of affection for, you know, a wrestler. And we all have those, you know, those wrestlers, whether it's male or female, that we really get excited. You know, we want them to succeed. We want them to be quote unquote pushed by the company, and, you know, a lot goes into that. But it's those superstars that really get our feet in the door. You know, they get a foot in the door, I should say. And that's really what gets you hooked, watching every week. And next thing you know, you are fully up to speed on all of the, you know, wrestlers that are on the roster. You know the storylines that are going on a weekly basis, and you want to see them get paid off. Like, you want to see the storylines come to fruition. And that's just a good thing about watching wrestling, because Triple H even mentioned it when he was on the Pat McAfee show earlier today, is that, you know, when WrestleMania hits, or when WrestleMania is over and the fireworks are going off, and it almost feels like the culmination of something. It feels like the end of the story this year, or the end of the road, however you want to look at it. But for Triple H and those that are decision makers in WWE, it does not stop there. He even said, like, as soon as the fireworks go off, he's getting a sheet for Monday Night Raw, and he's looking over that show and trying to get ready to gear in to this next year. So I am definitely excited for what's to come with WWE. It feels like they're in a really good spot. I actually heard from more just, you hear it on the internet. I don't know if you call them sources or not, but people who talk to people have said that Triple H mentioned that the draft is going to be coming back very, very soon, that the WWE draft is going to be taking place here in, the next coming months. So the rosters are going to get shaken up a little bit. I think that SmackDown kind of got the short end of the stick a long time ago, or the last draft, I should say. It feels like a long time ago. But nonetheless, I'm going to be pretty upset if we lose Braun Breaker, if we lose Jade Cargill, if we lose Tiffany Stratton, like these new additions that SmackDown got. I feel like they should be somewhat off limits. Otherwise, what the hell was the whole, which contract are you going to sign? What was the point in all that? So hopefully we can get some stability and some big name people get drafted, but it would be nice to, keep some of these newer names, some of these new faces that we just got on the brand, because Raw's doing fine. I will say Raw's a hell of a show right now. It's probably the hottest that it's been in a very long time. And obviously, you want to see both shows do pretty good. So definitely don't want to see SmackDown lose any of the new marquee wrestlers. But nonetheless, let's go ahead and get into this episode of SmackDown. This is the SmackDown that aired on April 5th, 2024 from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. This had the tag WrestleMania SmackDown, so it's got that theme to it, and you knew that big things were going to happen. Obviously, the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal is on this SmackDown. I think it's been on this card for the past 2, maybe 3 years. So it just seems like this is its new home, and that's why it does feel somewhat appropriate that you can call this one the WrestleMania SmackDown, given that it's 24 hours or less from the actual start of WrestleMania 40. I did really like that Meek Mill opening video package. I thought that was phenomenally put together. As somebody that's been to Philadelphia, just how passionate those fans are, like just for all sports. They are not afraid to let you hear it. And, I wouldn't advise anybody going there as a visiting fan. Like if you're going to Philadelphia for WrestleMania, cool. It's a neutral site, so you don't really have to worry about Eagles fans or Phillies fans kind of walking around and, doing whatever it is that they do that make all the other fans hate that city. But I will say, I went there for a Falcons versus Eagles game, the season opener in the 2018 season, after they just won the Super Bowl. So it was a pretty huge game for Philly and ended up being a really good game, but I definitely felt that atmosphere and, the intensity that they bring. It's pretty wild. But like I said, would not recommend going there if you are a visiting fan. I necessarily didn't have the worst time, but some Falcons fans that were sitting very close to me, they did. They were hearing it all game. But either way, the city itself, absolutely beautiful. I didn't expect it to be so humid whenever I was there, but, going to see the Rocky statue, going to the steps that Rocky ran up, there's a lot of things to do in Philadelphia, but obviously you got to eat a Philly cheesesteak, but the one time I went there, it was definitely a little bit tainted. I had the bad taste in my mouth from going there as a Falcons fan. So, I'm sure going there at WrestleMania, those of you that are there are going to have to let me know how you enjoyed the city, because, I would love to go back there just, for something like WrestleMania, something that is not sports related, and you could actually just enjoy the city, because, me living in Texas, I don't think I'll ever go to Philadelphia just to go. It would have to be something pretty big that was attracting me there. Otherwise, I would just probably go to Atlanta again. That's somewhere where I like to go 2-3 times a year. So, it's a great city, but there are I guess, the pros and the cons, if you will. But I will say the Meek Mill video package, phenomenally put together. Like, that was great. It's probably going to be the same video package that we see for WrestleMania Night 1 and 2. I think it's a great idea because obviously, that video really sets the stage and it sets the tone for the type of show that it's going to be. And, it is the self-proclaimed biggest WrestleMania of all time. So they're going to have to live up to those pretty high expectations. I will say, though, because SmackDown itself was so crowded and because there were so many fans that wanted to get inside the Wells Fargo Arena to go attend SmackDown, they had to reduce the stage. They had to adjust it. It didn't have the huge Jumbotron. It was kind of like, like we've seen in the Royal Rumble in years past. So that just tells you right now kind of the state of the product. Like they're having, you got some promotions, I'm not going to name names, that are having trouble filling just the lower level seats, that are right there in the view of the camera. Meanwhile, WWE is having to readjust their stage just so they can fit in more people because it's such a massive show. And this is just for SmackDown. I imagine that the Philly crowd is going to be very, very loud tomorrow whenever we actually get to WrestleMania. But this episode of SmackDown started with Kevin Owens and the Kevin Owens Show. Special guest Randy Orton, and I will say that Kevin Owens was wearing his WrestleMania themed shirt. He comes out with one of these every single year, depending on what match he's in. And it actually counts, I think this is WrestleMania 8 for Kevin Owens. And, obviously the last two, he was in the WrestleMania, or in the main event of night one. So, I guess you're doing all right if a quote-unquote demotion means that you have a championship match, a match for the United States Championship the following year. And it feels like a demotion, just because of how high you set the bar for yourself over the last couple of years. But as Randy Orton came out, obviously they were both taking shots at Logan Paul, which triggers Logan Paul to appear on the screen. And because it's not the massive Jumbotron like we typically have for SmackDown, they have to look really hard to see Logan Paul, but they do. And obviously he is from Lincoln Financial Field. He's coming to us live from the WrestleMania stage, which, sidebar, I think it looks great. I know that a lot of people probably had some pretty high expectations. I don't mind them dialing it back a little bit. Sometimes they go kind of overboard. Sometimes they really hammer it in that this is WrestleMania. I remember WrestleMania 34, whenever it was in Orlando and it was the roller coaster theme. I thought that looked great. When the Hardys showed up, great WrestleMania. I liked the one in Dallas a few years ago with just that massive star. So I don't mind whenever they kind of, take the simple approach, if you will. But as Logan Paul was running his mouth, Randy Orton and Kevin Owens point out just how close they actually are to the stadium, because Wells Fargo Arena is, or the Wells Fargo Center, whatever it's called, is literally right across the street from Lincoln Financial Field. So they literally leave the ring, go find him to try to kick his ass. But as soon as they leave the ring, that is, Theory and Waller appear from under the ring and do the exact same thing. They're just running, chasing them up the crowd, trying to leave the arena. And then as Kevin Owens and Randy Orton are outside, after being unable to get inside the car, they decide to take a golf cart, leaving Theory and Waller chasing them in pursuit. And we kind of tie back into this a little bit later. But up next here on the show, we get the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal. It is what it is. Some people don't like this. I totally understand that. The people that don't, others, they probably look forward to it every year just because of the random things that happen. One of the things that was pretty random that happened in this match was a very scary Akira Tozawa spot. There was a funny spot too. I wanted to point that out, where he was ripping his shirt, and as soon as he realized he was in the ring with three behemoths, he decided to try to, close his shirt up. Eventually, he got thrown over the top rope, but it was like an overthrow. He was trying to throw him on top of Otis, and he went flying over Otis, and, oh, man, he is very lucky to land the way that he did, because it very easily could have been Lita on Monday Night Raw all over again, where she's Scorpion, and you just never really want to see that type of thing. But it was a very scary fall, and then obviously Bronson Reed ends up winning the whole thing. So shout out to Bronson Reed for being the 2024 Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal winner. Up next here in the show, we get a promo from the Final Testament. Karrion Kross mentions that he wasn't on the WrestleMania card last year, and how he really didn't pout about it. He wasn't sitting there. He imitates a baby crying, just whining. And he said, "I wasn't pouting that I wasn't on the card. I just worked, got better." And now he pretty much is taking the credit for getting on the card this year with the Final Testament going up against Lashley, the Street Profits, and B-Fab. He takes credit for making that fight a must-see fight. So pretty much he's saying, look, last year they kept us off, but this year we were pretty much undeniable, and they had no choice but to put us on the card. I kind of feel like WrestleMania, being on WrestleMania just doesn't have the the same flair that it had back in the day. No pun intended. Obviously, like this year and years past, having 2 nights, the card being so long, like we're talking about 4 o'clock to 10 o'clock, 2 nights. Like that's insane. And I remember back in the day, the great WrestleManias, they had 6, 7 matches, maybe 8 or something like that. Like it was never an extremely loaded card, and that's a testament to how badass the roster is. But I don't necessarily look at it as a bad thing if certain matches aren't on the card, because there's going to be a lot of bathroom breaks during WrestleMania 40, and that says a lot given how highly anticipated and how great we all expect this pay-per-view to be. I do think that there's going to be some matches that you're going to say, that necessarily didn't need to be on WrestleMania, but we're still going to enjoy it nonetheless. Up next, Logan Paul comes out to trash Philly, and obviously he goes on to take shots at Kevin Owens and Randy Orton. He calls himself a mastermind. He says that he's playing cat and mouse, playing 4-dimensional chess. He mentions that he has some people ready to put their hands on Kevin Owens and Randy Orton at Lincoln Financial Field as soon as they see him. The camera that Logan Paul was standing in front of back earlier in the show, whenever he was at Lincoln Financial Field, is now showing Grayson Waller and Austin Theory pretty much looking for nobody. They're standing there, well, what's going on? We're here. Where are these guys at? And as they're saying that, Kevin Owens and Austin Theory appear from under the ring. They crawl out, and obviously they meet Logan Paul with a stunner and an RKO, just setting the stage for that triple threat match tomorrow. Or maybe it's night 2. I'm not really sure what night that match is actually going on. But either way, I'm definitely excited for it. I think Logan Paul is doing a great job as champion. You could tell that he's really committed and he's really buying into his role with the company right now. But just something about Kevin Owens and Randy Orton right now, like I'm pretty high on both of those guys. So I would love to see one of them walk out with the United States Championship and kind of carry it into this quote-unquote new era. I think everyone has pretty high expectations for where the company is going to go in the rest of spring and in the summer of 2024. Big things are ahead. And it wouldn't hurt to have somebody like Orton or Kevin Owens hold that United States Championship as we, get into the changed season. Dragon Lee is attacked backstage. No one really knows who it is, although Carlito was there, says it was not Santos Escobar. I thought that was a pretty funny little reference. I'm not sure if they were, actually referencing the internet and how popular that meme is of him saying that. But the fact that we heard it so clearly in this little segment, I thought that was pretty hilarious. I just had to point that out, though. And then obviously, keeping things LWO related, Zelina Vega versus Elektra Lopez next. And Elektra Lopez is accompanied by Santos, and then Dominic Mysterio makes a little surprise appearance, and then so does Andrade. And that's whenever we kind of were like, okay, I'm confused. Like, what the hell's going on? Andrade is going to join Legado del Fantasma? Like, that's kind of what I was like, come on now. Like, this cannot happen. So I did have my doubts the entire time. And as the match is going on, obviously, Elektra Lopez wins this bad boy with an Elektra shock, thanks to a minor distraction from Dominic, distracting the referee. And as Rey was checking on Zelina after the match, Dom and Santos attacked Rey Mysterio from behind and pretty much just started a beatdown until Andre shows his true allegiance and saves Rey. And, the crowd popped right there. They wanted to see Andrade stay babyface. They wanted to be able to cheer for him because they've wanted him back in WWE for so long. So now that he's finally back and he's taken the babyface route, that's definitely the way to go. Continuing on here in the show, Naomi, Jade Cargill, and Bianca, they want to send a message to Damage Control. And I thought this was great as well. They all get a little bit of mic work. You can tell that Jade is very scripted. You can tell that somebody is preparing her lines for her. And she's not really comfortable on the microphone just yet. I think that's really her only glaring weakness, though, in her game. Her wrestling kind of is what it is at this point. I mean, could she be more polished? Yes. But I think that, just given her style and the type of matches that she can put on, you just expect that she's in a good spot, and I think that she has plenty of time to grow, and they're going to really take their time with her. I think she's going to get the Cody Rhodes treatment and have a jetpack immediately put on her back. Taking things backstage, Rey Mysterio is informed that because of the attack earlier, Dragon Lee will not be able to compete at WrestleMania. So how conveniently, Andrade offers his services, so Rey Mysterio will not have to forfeit the match or anything like that. He will still get to go up against Santos and Dominic Mysterio. He's going to have Andrade on his side, and I think that the fans are going to be behind that just as much. Like, Andrade is pretty damn popular, and I wouldn't be opposed to it. Let's see here. New Catch Republic versus Grayson Waller and Austin Theory. New Catch Republic do win this match with a Berlin hammer on Grayson Waller, but the Judgment Day come out and immediately start to cheap shot New Catch Republic, just putting a beat down on them. I was like, what the hell's their beef with this team? Like, there's so many other teams in this six-pack ladder match. I guess you're trying to at least weaken one of them, but as soon as that happened, I was like, well, I mean, I kind of want to bet on New Catch Republic winning now. Like, for some reason, like, I'm just like, why would you do that? You know, there was no need for you to, I guess, beat up one team when there's still four other teams that you're going to have to be going up against. Nonetheless, it happened, so we'll see if it does actually come into effect tomorrow. But yeah, if New Catch Republic actually wins this thing, I'm all for that. I just, for some reason, I think this tag team really has that it factor, and it won't be long before the fans really get behind them. But let's see here. Did you guys, hold on, number one, Rhea Ripley got extensions. Thought that is a little bit odd, just timing-wise. Right before WrestleMania, I just think that, I don't know. I just think that maybe she knows, all right, something big's going to happen. This highlight's going to be shown for decades and decades. But I just feel like the look that she had going for her was just kind of her brand at this point. But she looks great. I'm not criticizing her whatsoever. But I kind of noticed, I was like, man, the timing is interesting. Because that's a pretty drastic thing to do. All of a sudden you have hair down to your shoulders. Now it's past your shoulder blades, down to halfway down your back. It's a pretty big change just in like one day. So I had to get used to that. But also the video of LA Knight getting into a little bit of a fisticuffs with AJ Styles. Was it the WrestleMania World? I don't even know exactly where that was. But it started off just them kind of shoving each other, and I was wondering, okay, like, this is a work, you know? Like, they're just kind of going at it. But, man, AJ Styles slammed him on the ground very hard. Like, it was a very real slam whenever you saw LA Knight kind of just hit the ground like that. And then when AJ Styles finally comes free, you see that he has a bloody nose. And obviously cuss words are said. They go back and forth. AJ Styles says, I'm going to F you up. And LA Knight tells him to show up to SmackDown, calls him the P word. So it was interesting, to say the least, just that they're trying to make us really want to see these two beat the hell out of each other. There's probably going to be some stiff shots, but also AJ Styles, I saw there's a lot of wrestling news going on right now. A lot of things are kind of hitting the interwaves. And one of the things that I saw was that AJ Styles is very close to retiring. Like, he's already to the point to where he doesn't want to embarrass himself in the ring, and he just feels like he wants to kind of go out and still be at the top of his game. I totally understand that. You don't want to be a shell of yourself. I just kind of didn't expect it to happen so soon. And, I mean, he's been wrestling for a really long time. It's not like he's a spring chicken. He has 4 kids, and just his type of wrestling, he's always been like a high flyer, put his body through hell. He's still doing front flips and back flips and things like that, but kind of just caught me off guard. The AJ Styles is really that close, but hey, I mean, he's had a phenomenal career, no pun intended. And if it is going to end very soon, then yeah. But he deserves to ultimately go in the Hall of Fame at one point. But also, he mentioned that he wants just to have that last story. He wants to have one more good storyline, one more good, I guess, program to go out on. And probably with someone that he's fine saying, okay, this can be my last match. Maybe it's 1 year left. Maybe he's got 1 year left and he can kind of culminate it at WrestleMania 41. At this point, that's what I'm hoping for. It's crazy that you just feel like it could end up being a little bit sooner than that, as much as we don't like it or as much as we don't want it to happen. But, like I said, he spent a lot of his career outside of WWE. He was already in the twilight, in the back half of his prime, whenever he showed up to WWE. So I guess you got to appreciate the time that we did get with him. But LA Knight does come out and he addresses AJ Styles, and they just talk about their match that's going to be happening Sunday night 2 of WrestleMania. One of the only noteworthy things, though, that I took away from this promo, from LA Knight was he choked on his gum. I'm not sure if any of you guys caught that. Like, he never stumbles over his words. But whenever he was talking, he kind of choked on his gum and it stopped in mid-sentence, and he kind of just had to improvise from there. It was a funny little moment. You know, you really don't see LA Knight have something like that. He's usually pretty flawless on the microphone. Even Corey Graves might have mentioned something about it. So just go back and watch that if you want to see LA Knight choke on his gum, because it is pretty funny. Another thing that happened during SmackDown, not like on the show, but in the Discord chat, obviously, the plug, go subscribe on Patreon to get the access to the Discord. You definitely want to be involved in that for WrestleMania. Like I promise you, it's going to be a lot of chat, a lot of conversation going on during the pay-per-view, and you want to be involved in those conversations. But DJ Kuzmo, he is the one who announced that Bobby Lashley, B-Fab, and the Street Profits, they're called the Pride. That's the name of the faction. I'll take his word for it. I still haven't seen it anywhere, but I haven't gone and looked anywhere. I trust DJ Kuzmo. He's a pretty reliable source. So, yeah, we're going to roll with it. The Pride announced that in Philadelphia for WrestleMania, it's going to be a Philadelphia street fight against the Final Testament. So just adding a little bit of juice to that rivalry. You know, it's been going on for a pretty long time. Good enough to get on the WrestleMania card. Remember, Karrion Kross said it was a must-see fight. So we'll see just how truthful he was being. But anyways, I'm glad that they finally have a name, because it's tough saying Lashley and the Street Profits all the time. Like, come on, give this faction a name if you're going to have them actually stick together for a long, extended period of time. But the main event is here. Not only in the show, but main event Jey Uso going one-on-one with Solo Sikoa, brother versus brother. And this match goes on for probably about like 12 minutes, 12, 13 minutes. And then Jimmy Uso comes out, breaks it up, attacks Jey Uso, causing it to be a disqualification. And then he and Solo proceed to beat down their brother right before he's about to get a Samoan spike. Cody's music hits, and out comes the American Nightmare alongside Seth Rollins, and then the tables turn. And I mean literally turn it. All of a sudden turned into a beatdown the other way around. And then Cody Rhodes cuts a promo immediately after the show, making a lot of declarations that, you know, obviously they're going to smack The Rock around. They're going to remind him what it's like to be the people's champion. And they're going to smack his ego out of his body and pretty much just remind him of who he used to be. And then he says that he's going to dethrone Roman Reigns. He flat out says that on Sunday, I'm going to dethrone Roman Reigns. And then he mentions how whenever one story ends, an even better one begins. So he's really teeing himself up that this could be the moment that Roman Reigns loses his championship. And it's just hard for me to wrap my mind around that. Like, if so, like, we're either going to get one outcome. Cody Rhodes is going to lose his second WrestleMania main event in a row, or this historic streak that we've seen from Roman Reigns is coming to an end. I don't know which one is going to happen, but one of them has to. That's the beauty of this sport. There's only going to be one winner. And I think that if Cody Rhodes loses again, people might riot. But it doesn't seem like they're in any hurry to take Roman Reigns or take the championship off of him. In fact, didn't he just say not that long ago, whenever he loses on that documentary that just came out for Roman Reigns? I could be paraphrasing. Don't really know exactly what was said. I truthfully, admittedly, have not watched it. But I've seen some clips online, and I've heard some chatter. And one of the things that I've heard is that he flat out said, whenever I lose the titles, I'm done. Like, I don't want to be here if I'm not the top guy. Like, I'm pretty much emptying my tank right now. And if this just so happens to be the end of the road for me, then so be it. But he's not going to go back to just being on the roster. I think that, you know, he's going to go straight from being the champion to true part-time. And a lot of people might say, well, he's part-time right now. He hardly ever wrestles. He hasn't wrestled since January. And here we are in April, WrestleMania. He's not going to wrestle for months after this no matter what. I mean, if he loses, we could see at WrestleMania Backlash him get his rematch against Cody Rhodes. So we could very well see that. But if he wins, he's not going to show up till damn near SummerSlam, I bet. Like, and that is sad. So you tell me, as a wrestling fan, like, what do you want? Do you want to see the streak continue? Do you want to see that championship continue to be an afterthought? Or do you want Cody Rhodes to get a chance to see what he can do with it, to see where the company can go behind the American Nightmare? Last year, I was all for Cody Rhodes winning. I was pretty confident he was going to. Was very wrong in that prediction. Cody Rhodes did not win, as we all know, and it just feels different this year. Like, it just feels like the moment is there for him, and he has an opportunity to take it. Now, there's a lot of things that are going to come into effect. Obviously, if they lose on Saturday night and it's bloodline rules, the odds are stacked even more against him, and his chances to win decrease drastically. So that's why this whole WrestleMania is must-see. Night 1, Night 2, find the matches that you like, find the superstars that you like, and just watch them work. Not even to mention the gear. You know, WrestleMania always is very fashionable. Is that the word to use? I really don't know. But I know that people bring out their best gear. They bring out their best moves. And, you know, the best things happen at WrestleMania. It's the grandest stage of them all. It's the granddaddy of them all. You know, this is it. So I'm glad that we're here for another run. Obviously, the first WrestleMania that I was a part of was in 2021. And now here we are. This is my fourth one. So shout out to you guys for being here along the ride with me. And I'm looking forward to this pay-per-view happening. Thank you guys so much. That does conclude the SmackDown review, or should I say the WrestleMania SmackDown review. So I hope you guys all have a damn good weekend. We do chili dogs every year for WrestleMania. We've done it since like 2010, 2011. It was a thing that happened in my house, you know, growing up when I was in middle school and high school, and I kind of carried it on to now and all these other WrestleManias. So yeah, chili cheese dogs for WrestleMania. It's the theme, and I'm definitely looking forward to eating probably like 12 or 15 of them. We'll see what happens. I end up gaining some weight every April because of the NFL draft, because of WrestleMania, other holidays. So yeah, looking forward to this weekend though. Hopefully you are too. Come back next week. Let's talk about the fallout. Go check out the Football Function podcast. I will truly appreciate that. Let me know if you do. I'll give you a massive shout out. But with all that being said, guys, have a damn good weekend. Enjoy WrestleMania 40. Walk passionately in the direction of your dreams. And I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for listening to the WWE podcast. Don't forget to subscribe on your favorite podcast app so you don't miss a show, or head to WWEpodcast.com. And for all of these shows ad-free, head over to patreon.com/WWE podcast. Until then, we'll see you next time.